Hello and welcome to another edition of the Sunday Scaries. Here talking all your horror news throughout the week. And we are here to officially start your work week, I suppose. We have a little bit of time, starting early morning, but we know that work week is coming in 24 hours, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, never any fun, but that's why we're here. We're here to give you a little bit of that little kick in the ass on your Sunday morning to kind of get you going, and just remember that you got yourself a whole day here, so you can do whatever you need to do, whether that's doing some chores, taking it easy, watching some stuff on Shutter, or just spending the whole day getting your stuff done and getting ready for that
See, I
unfortunate
like the
5 days
just
straight
watching
up.
stuff on Shutter. That's throw everything out the window. Focus on all your horror movies. That's all you need on a Sunday, I feel.
Sometimes, man, sometimes you plan right, everything goes well, and you get your weekends a little more free. I like last week had updated you guys about the upgrade of technology that I was going through. It's here, as you can see. I don't have anything figured out. My whole NECA display is tipped over. It's a big mess in here right now. I'm a little in shambles, but I spent basically all day getting this thing together, and it's working. At least now it's very fast, very good. We're in the modern era, so
Oh,
definitely
look at you
feeling
over
good
there.
about that. Now I just need to get things figured out, orientated. So
Well, now the big piece of machinery is going to be the centerpiece, so you just got to work around that.
I
Is what's
know
going to happen.
I kind of hate it being like that, so I will have to figure something out. um
It's not bad. It's colorful. You
it
know,
is, yes. No, we
you got to
I
change it to green and red though to be, on
my
brand here.
my keyboard, I can do that. You can't see it right now, but I'm trying to figure something out so that way maybe you guys can in the future. And then obviously as we go along here, I'd like to get some of those like tape lights and stuff
Yeah.
around here, and really get it all nice and settled. I just have my big ring lamp up there right now. But yeah, this is not what my permanent setup will look like. It's messy, it's gross. I don't like it. I don't like the angle of my camera, but we have to record to get you guys this video. And like I said, we were gonna do it. Damn it! And at least I'm not sitting in the corner of my finished basement and sitting on a laptop holding my Yeti mic, just being like, "Hey guys, haven't figured it all out yet." So at least we are here. So
Well, a busy weekend for you, and I would say a busy week in the horror realm. I mean, we went. If you've checked out the channel, we went and saw Beast,
hmm
which turned out better than I expected.
I always appreciate that. Yes, a good creature feature. I enjoyed it. Like I said in our review, I've been liking the consistency that we've gotten over the last couple of years of at least getting, seems like one a year or one every other year of a decent creature feature. Last one I can really think of was 2019's Crawl. So, I mean, it's been a minute, but I think they're, honestly, I would say 47 meters down, uncaged. I like that. I thought that was way better than the first. But I can understand people that not being people's thing. So, but Beast was good.
Beast was good. I've also gotten a chance to check out a few more that I would say the running theme for me is pleasantly surprised. Glorious, I did get to check out on Shutter. That came out, I think, on Thursday, maybe the
It
18th.
was Thursday, yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Very contained film. Still waiting for you to check that out. Maybe we'll do a review later in the week if we have time. Also checked out Orphan First Kill.
Oh, really?
Um,
Where'd you watch that at?
it's on Paramount Plus.
Oh, you have that? I don't have that.
Yes.
Mm.
And I will say, I went into it believing it was just going to be awful, and I'll say like for the first 25 minutes did not have my attention. Then they put a twist in there, and I'm like, really? So overall, I thought it was really well done. It's very fun.
Okay, well, hey, good. Glad to see you got some good stuff on your belt. The week of surprises, right? Like, there
Yeah,
you
very
go.
successful week.
Oh yeah. Now I'll be back on the watching train here now that I got things settled. I just gotta, like I said, get the background restructured here, figure out exactly how I want to do things, and then my life can kind of go back to zen and getting things ready and taking care of a 6 month old. So, that's where I'm at right now, at least.
Always a fun time. Well, we might as well get right into it. and start the Sunday Scaries as we always do with the kill of the week.
Ooh.
Ah,
And
there we
what are
go.
we
We've got
talking this week, Luke? What do we got? This is
we are talking the original Terminator here. There we go. We got Arnie up there in his shades, and we have Ginger and Matt. So this is probably one of the most interesting kills. I think as a kid, this for some reason this kind of whole segment here really stuck with me as a kid, and I don't know why, but it's just like one of the whenever I'd go back to the original Terminator, I wouldn't really think about anything else except the Ginger and Matt scene for some reason.
oh wow, you just like her listening to her headphones while they're banging, don't
Exactly.
you?
She had the Walkman and everything.
You were just like, damn, I can't wait to do that when I'm older.
She's playing
Um,
she's using celery as drumsticks. I mean,
mhm.
such a great scene.
Oh yeah, no, I mean this is one of those movies that I think is almost a rite of passage growing up, especially that '80s era. Like it's, you know, I would say probably more infamous is Judgment Day. Like I think that is the quintessential Terminator film.
So,
But I
so
mean,
question, did you see Judgment Day before you saw Terminator, or did you see him in the right order? Because
I
I
saw him in
seen
the right order.
okay, because I had seen Judgment Day before I had ever seen the Terminator, just because it was on TV all the time, and it was the one that I would always go back and watch because I thought Arnold was so cool on that motorcycle. Um, And plus, I realized that Arnold was the bad guy in the first one. I was like, I'm not really a fan of that because it's like in the early '90s, as a kid, Arnie's he's your mainstay action hero. So anytime I hear that he's a bad guy, I'm like, no, 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 we'll pass on that one. So it took me a minute until I was older to actually commit to the original Terminator.
Yeah, no,
Fully.
I saw it first. I saw this one in the correct order. I think that was my dad's doing probably. Um Again, I think I did watch it on that Fox movie channel. So I got to see it almost fully uncut or uncut. I don't remember exactly how it broke down. But yeah, I remember watching this and then I watched Terminator 2. Um I couldn't give you any more than that, but I know that's exactly the order I watched it in because I just vividly remember. Strangely enough, I remember the club scene a lot,
Yeah,
and that one really
that's a
affected
big
me.
one.
Just him pulling the gun out, and
Spraying bullets.
exactly, yeah, like there was just one of those visceral moments. And then I remember him the ending where I forget the what model is he? The
T800.
T800. That's what I keep wanting to say. The T600. Is that a thing? Is the T600 a
No,
thing?
I don't think. Oh no, I think maybe the T600s are in Salvation.
Salvation. Okay. But the T800, yeah, crawling and the clicking of the feet and the heels and
Yeah.
stuff, like just that really stuck with me. So
Oh,
it's
it's
like,
an
yeah,
unsettling visual.
it is, yeah, no, and this is one of those movies that, again, you can kinda look at it like, an Alien and Aliens kinda thing, where this one leans more into the horror aspect of the situation, and, a lot of people I know have been saying that they kinda want Terminator to go back to this, and I agree. I think that, with everything we've tried, everything that we've done with this franchise, I know that we differ on Dark Fate a little bit,
Yeah.
but I was not a fan. Genesis is just horrible. I don't actually know how you feel about Salvation, but Salvation is it's watchable to me. I can throw that on every once in a while and have fun with it. Um, and I mean, three. I guess sometimes I really like it. Sometimes I'm just like, okay, whatever. It's just a little too cheesy for me. But I mean, two all-time classic, and this one is just right there, just I think a couple notches below that one. But
Yeah.
yeah, at least the first two Terminators are amazing, and I think that if we went back to this style of the Terminator film, I think that people would be a lot happier.
And for me, like I the first two are absolute classics. Two's in the running probably for my favorite movie of all time. My timeline is one, two, and three. Everything after that, it's I can take it or leave it. Really, mostly leave it. Salvation is fine. I think it's an okay film, but I just think the charm of Terminator ran its course in the sense where it's always been, the cybernetic organism, the machine under the living tissue, and that's part of the charm of the whole film, where it's like trying to, no one believing Sarah Connor or Kyle Reese and thinking that they are crazy, and they're the only ones that actually are in the know for that. And I think that's the part of the great storytelling of the film. So I think I do strongly believe, like, people say they want post Judgment Day, and then when you get there, you're like, I don't know really if I resonate with this, because it's like it's okay to see, but overall, like, I didn't feel that connection that I felt with those other three films. So, in Genesis, I've never seen. I think maybe I've seen like a handful, of scenes in it, but I've never actually fully committed to that film. Dark
It's
Fate,
rough.
yeah, and,
It's
and that's
I
what
would
it's like.
put that way below any of the others.
Yeah. And Dark Fate was like, I respect them for as much as they had to go through in terms of navigating those murky waters of how much storytelling can they do in the expansive universe of what should we do here. Some of the choices I respect that they did, but again, that's a film where if it doesn't really exist in my timeline, I'm totally fine with it. So, really, like, the first three films are my timeline. Um, but again, like you're saying, Alien versus Aliens, this is very much um, horror centric. The original is, where the second one gets very actiony. It still has horror elements, but not as big as they do in that first film. It's very contained in a sense, even though the Terminator universe feels big. It's still kind of contained a little bit more than Judgment Day is, and I think that's really where the art is in that. So it's like, yeah, I could see them kind of going back to their horror roots, because does seem like where it's based. But it's like once you get that big budget in front of them, they pump so much in the special effects that they kind of want to make the most of it. And I think that's kind of the cause of you losing that kind of contained horror centric feeling, where it's like, oh well, we want to take advantage of these uh, phenomenal effects, so we really have to show them off, and then they don't focus really on that horror sort of storytelling.
No, I would agree. Yeah, I think like if we could kind of streamline this and kind of take it back a few notches, we'd probably be in a much happier spot with this franchise. But yeah, I say without further ado, let's take a look at some of the actual horror elements that we're discussing here when it comes to this franchise, because
Let's get into it.
this scene definitely has those. So
This is
yeah,
such just a creepy part where he's
hmm
sleeping and the Terminator stalks in.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like, just watching him, like, it's a subtle thing, but the fact that he's able to just like punch right through that pillow just shows
Yep.
again the brute strength and
And him just
ferocity.
throwing him.
Oh yeah, and because it's like he's not a little guy. Like,
No,
I
not at
mean,
all.
you definitely could see these two fighting. Now, can I say a pet peeve of mine that
Oh yeah.
is always in movies like this? I grew up with headphones like this, like what she's wearing, and I'm telling you, she'd be able to hear this. Like, there's no way her music is loud enough that she could not hear this. And sorry, just cutting out of that, the slow mo in this movie,
Yes.
and you get a little bit revisited with that with two, with the hallway scene in the mall. Just I think it's a brilliant use of slow motion
And
because it really ramps up that tension.
in this scene with her crawling and then him walking right behind her, getting set up the shot here, is just perfect.
Oh yeah, no, I mean this
And
is
that the
all.
close up of the hand as she's being shot, I mean, absolutely perfect. And this is
Oh,
such a, this is where he learns about the Sarah Connor thing. Like this, the machine kind of aspect there, where he's taking her pulse, making sure that she's dead. I really love those kind of thoroughness, I guess, that they put to that character, because he's very much acting like a machine. And you even see it in the slow motion movements, where I think, people can say that maybe the hollowness in some of Arnold's performances can be, it's not acting, it's just how he is. But no, I think he really took the time to go that extra mile to feel like a machine, and it really shines through in that Terminator.
no, it's I mean, like, you can definitely, a lot of people I know put that on him in his early career. saying things like, oh, like, it took he wasn't up there yet, he wasn't to snuff yet. I this is You're dealing with Jim Cameron as a
Yeah,
director here. I mean, like, nothing he does in his films is on
by accident.
accident. Yeah, like, this man is a machine himself when it comes to filmmaking. I mean, he spent the last what, like, 12 years making this Avatar sequel. So, like, the dude
Committed.
lives and breathes it's my way or the highway, and I'm going to do every little technical aspect the way that it needs to be done. So I firmly believe that there were plenty of conversations between Arnold and James Cameron about him, acting robotic and a little bit more cold and detached. You know what I mean? It's like there's no way that that's just, it's not poor acting because I mean he's
No,
doing a great job. So it's like
and
you
it's
can't
like
say
it
that.
you see it so many times. You were talking about the club scene that you remember. Him spraying those bullets and even his movements when he's kinda going back and forth trying to pick Sarah out of the giant crowd, and he's spraying those bullets, you can kinda see in his movements, he's going back and forth, like, trying to zero in on her. I think there's just such a thoroughness in Arnold's performance in this. It's really what kind of spawned him coming into his own, especially in the later 80s. This film just really showed what he was capable of.
No, I agree 100%. Now, I guess we'll kind of slow that down a little bit. We'll kind of get back in here because now we're actually getting into the kills
He's getting
themselves
thrown
here.
around. I love like the duality here where, man is getting thrown around. She doesn't even know she's doing her own thing right there. So it's like really two kills for the price of one here.
Hmm.
And this scene right here, the unveiling, him just bloody coming through
Oh
the
yeah,
door.
and I
How
mean, like
horrific.
how he's hunched over, so it's like that he got the some wooden shards from the door busted into him and stuff.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, and just like the use, like you don't see it a lot in horror films, but the use of a gun here, because a
yeah.
lot of people will go in for like a bladed weapon or some kind of other thing that's a little more personal, a little more gets into your guts and stuff. But like
And this does feel personal.
it
Close
does.
range. It's like he's standing over her, just pumping bullets into her. You even see the shells popping out of the gun. I mean, it feels so personal here, where it's like, yeah, you can take those kind of gunshot kills and they don't feel personal. It's a way of filming. And I think again,
Hmm.
like Harry's saying, Jim Cameron doesn't do anything by accident here. You can really tell he wanted this to feel close range, very intimate. And again, this is where we get really into that horror centric feeling here, where the sequel has some of those horror elements, but it doesn't have that real closeness like this film does.
No, and it's a totally different movie. I mean, like, he's not going for those same horror elements because he's humanizing the machine. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, he's not our enemy. Like, you can see it. I think a great example of that is the scene where the T-1000 is trying to trick John Connor's mom.
yeah,
Uh or sorry, not John Connor's mom.
John Connor.
John Connor on the payphone. And she's talking to him and they do that reveal of his adopted father with the blade in his mouth. Like, that's very horror centric. And I mean, I could talk Terminator 2 for God knows how long. So I mean, I'm not gonna get any deeper into it, but the whole setup with the dog barking and Arnie changing his voice and stuff, like, just who thinks of this shit? But anybody
Yeah,
but James Cameron. You know what I mean? Like, it's so well thought out.
and because I think even in this one, doesn't he impersonate Sarah's mother? I think at some point. Am I
I think so.
misremembering?
I think so. Yeah, because he's isn't that when he's calling through the phone
Yeah,
book?
yep.
Hmm.
To
He's
find
just
out where
calling through
she's
it.
at with Kyle.
Yep, yep, yep. No,
So, I just think this is so well done. Especially, I honestly I picked this because again, what we eventually get into this franchise, this is really the first time that Sarah's and I guess you'd say Skynet's their kind of paths really cross here. This is because he's been trying to find Sarah, going through that phone book, getting the wrong Sarah Connors, finally stumbles upon this one. She's not home. And this is the Ginger Matt kill here is really where this kind of spawns the beginning of this cat and mouse game. And then what we will see later on in the other films sets that trajectory off right here.
no, I agree. It's uh, it's definitely. the most unique I think that we get with this franchise because it feels nothing like the later sequels.
Yes.
Even Terminator 2, it feels nothing like it. It's its own, wholly its own thing. I mean, you can sit down and watch these movies back to back, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when I say that.
Yeah.
It's just like it's this movie more so than anything is the closest we get to a horror film, and I'd say it succeeds. It's definitely, it's why it's on here. It's it can qualify. It can
Yeah.
definitely get in there,
A lot of
because I mean,
terrifying.
it's a fucking big old machine from the future coming to kill people. Like that's scary as shit, man.
Yeah, and it really does play kind of like even in that scene where Arnold's stalking her as she's crawling across the floor. It really does play almost like a Halloween, a Michael Myers esque, that kind of voyeurism feeling you get toward the machine.
Mm,
So this is very horror centric. It's very great. Um, One of my favorite scenes, and I mean, just this kill alone, you can really see those horror undertones in this film. Um,
absolutely.
so I think without further ado, we have to pay our respects to Mr. Matt Buchanan and Miss Ginger Ventura. What a great couple.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's so tragic that they went out the way they did, and they weren't even the targets, you know what I mean? And they're
They
just
didn't even know what
collateral
was going
damage.
on.
Nope, nope, they'll never know why they were murdered. And that's the unfortunate thing when you're dealing with Terminators, I guess.
Maybe there could be an alternate cut where the Terminator walks in and Sarah calls just 5 minutes earlier and he hears her voice on the thing and then he just turns around and walks right back out.
No, I still think you'd kill him. Um but yeah, I guess we'll move into our next segment here there, Luke. This is again, for those who don't know, it was last week's episode that we introduced this, correct?
Yes, we did. We did.
Yes, yes. So if you missed last week's episode, what are you doing? Where
What's
aren't you
going
in
on? Go back. You
your
pause
weekly
this one, you
horror
go back and you
news? Yeah.
watch it.
Pause it right now, exactly, just like Luke said, and go watch that episode. You're gonna miss some story elements here.
Yeah, plus
Um,
you're not gonna know what happened, on that day last week. Just like
yeah,
we're gonna tell you right now what happened on this day on 8/21, um, in our history of horrors.
yes,
Look at
yes.
that heavy hitter right here, Dylan, you know it.
Yep. As you can see, I got the poster very infamously. You can't see it too well. It's why I'm frustrated with my setup right now, but we will get there. Because I love that poster. I love this movie. It's one of my all-time favorites, American Werewolf in London, directed by John Landis, written as well, and winner of the Academy Award for Best Makeup. That was the first time that award was given out, correct?
Yes, it
Or
was.
visual
Yes, it
makeup
was.
effects? Yes. So very groundbreaking horror film. I mean, like if you want to get down to the brass tacks of it, like that's a big one. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason that it's held in such high regard. And I mean, it's endlessly rewatchable for me. This was one of my mother's favorites. Something that she showed me when I was super young. I remember the first time that I saw it. I was sitting, we were actually at a like a concert thing for my great grandmother. Um, some free oldies concert where they're just doing covers and stuff, and you pull your car up and you watch it. And we had like a little DVD player, portable DVD player, and we rented it from Netflix when they still did DVDs. And I remember being so excited, middle of the summer, so it's like every day I'm waiting for that DVD to show up just because I know it's a werewolf movie I've never seen. And I watch it, and the rest is history, man. I was hooked. I was fucking hooked.
It's
I
such a definitive film in horror, but especially in that werewolf subgenre, just because this is a very much like Jaws, where it's eh, that first huge film like that, and they did it right, you know. So it's like
Mhm.
everyone after that film has only been trying to live up to Jaws or An American Werewolf in London. And this film, my first viewing of this one was I believe it was on AMC when they had I don't know if it was during the October month or they used to play it randomly throughout the year.
Mm.
So I just randomly flipped it on one day and I was like, I am absolutely in love with this film, because I already loved werewolf stuff. I had a bunch of random werewolf action figures as a kid that I had no idea where they were from. I just know I love that kind of character. So it's like anytime seeing that stuff on actual TV, I just could not get enough of it. Something just to the core of me would terrify me as of a man turning into a wolf, and it would just absolutely scare the pants off me. So it was like anytime I got to actually see that, I couldn't get enough of it. So this is such a definitive film in the horror genre. I mean, you talk to almost any filmmaker, not necessarily in the horror genre, just in a lot of filmmaking, this is a definitive film in their catalog that they watched as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, like it's one for me, like I said, that's always been in my rotation ever since. I mean, I have literally, like, if you guys saw a couple weeks back with the Arrow sale, it was one I already had the Arrow edition, but I upgraded it to the 4K because it's one of my top five favorite horror films of all time. I have to have it in the best possible quality. It's one I would own multiple copies of. I actually forgot to text you about this, but I was at Target getting some carpet cleaner earlier today. This was the one in Macedonia. We are Akron based, just so you guys know. If you ever want to come say hello. And, so I was up there, Luke, and they're finally hitting shelves in Target. The Kessler Wolf.
Really?
Yes. So I would keep an eye out if I
I'm
were
gonna
you,
have to
because
go
I
take
know
a
you're
gander
trying to
now.
grab one.
I'm gonna
So,
have to sashay down over by a few Targets, and check out and see if they got that good old Kessler wolf, because that
yeah.
is one that is still vacant in my collection that
Yeah.
I've been waiting
I
on.
I got lucky, but I paid a pretty penny for mine because I got mine pretty early. But there was a local shop here that had one, so it's like I think I paid double the price for it. But I mean, I don't give a fuck. It's
You're
the
not gonna
it's
pass
one
it
of
up.
my all-time favorite NECA figures now. It's another one I got to fit back in the display over here just because it's like it's just so fucking
And the
beautiful.
box is
Oh
gorgeous in
yeah, I
itself.
mean, like it's one of my centerpieces. Again, you can't really see it with how I have it angled right now, but yeah, that's a centerpiece box right there. That's
Yeah,
amazing. I fucking love that thing. And yeah, I love this movie. So yeah, but I digress. We will have to discuss more American Werewolf as we
it'll get
continue
its
on
own
with the
show.
show. Oh yes, oh yes. We
But
love
let's
our werewolves.
we can pivot from werewolves to vampires right now.
No, yes we can, because the next pick, boom,
Look at this.
Blade. Yes, this is an interesting one. We talked about Spawn as our last episode for Splattercast. So, you know, we discussed how that movie came out a few months before this one,
I
Spawn.
believe so.
Mm-hmm.
I know Spawn was August of 1997. Blade was 1998, but I don't know what month.
I can figure that out for us here,
But
but
I'll give a little rundown
oh
here.
yeah, go for it.
Directed by Stephen Norrington, written by David S. Goyer, and of course spawned two more films in the franchise, both Blade 2 and Blade Trinity, which Blade 2 I enjoy quite a bit. Blade 3, not so much. But I think this was another film that I would watch. I think this was honestly on, I believe, TNT or TBS all the time. Like on Sundays, I would always watch this movie for some reason whenever it was on. I used to actually uh, staying up late on Sundays because I'm a wrestling fan. So I
Mm-hmm.
never had enough money as a kid to purchase the actual pay-per-views that they would do on Sunday. But I found out that if you would go to the higher channels that were pixelated, you could hear the commentary of the actual event. So I would stay up late listening to the actual event itself. And sometimes if there was something on that did not interest me, I would turn it on. I just go channel surfing, and Blade was always on either TNT or TBS. So I'd always end up watching that late at night on a Sunday. And what a great film it is. I really enjoy it. I enjoy it to this day. This will probably be another film that gets its own Splattercast episode down the line.
I would
But
say so, especially because we're getting not a remake, but another interpretation with the
Yes.
MCU coming out in a few years. So there will definitely be room for Blade to show up.
And, I thought Wesley Snipes was such great casting for Blade.
Mhm.
So well
There's a
done.
lot of people that want him to come back in the MCU's version as what was the character, his mentor character? Do you remember the name?
No, I remember me and you talked about this when it was first announced that Mahershala Ali was gonna be
I
the
love
new
that
Blade.
casting.
Yeah, I think it's great as well. So, like, this is another one where, Wesley Snipes is great. You can't go wrong with either casting, I don't think. So, I mean, Wesley Snipes in the 90s was, you know, the obvious choice here, I think. So, um, I love this character. I love the universe that it's in. Very interesting concept. I'm very excited to see what they do. But again, at least Blade 1, Blade 2, I thought were so great, especially for the time. Those really felt like real films. When sometimes I mean, we talked about Spawn, we talked about some of those Batman movies where they became very, very franchise esque. We want to put the toys in the Happy Meals. That's what we're more so concerned about. Where Blade felt like a very complete film.
I've never seen Blade Trinity. But I have seen the first and second one. I enjoy them both. I think they're great. Good deal of fun. I think I like the first one a little more. But I do respect the second one. Second one's got Ron Perlman in it, so that gives a couple points up there for you. For clarification, because we were way off. Feel bad considering we just did a podcast on Spawn a week ago about this, so you think we'd have our facts straight, but it's been a busy week. August 3rd, 1997 was the release date of Spawn. And then about a year later, at August 19th, 1998, you have Blade. So
Okay.
they're a year apart. But again, the major point we bring that up is because Spawn, if I think handled with a little more care, really could have been looked back on, like a lot of people look back on Blade being one of those first definitive early 2000s, late 90s superhero
Yeah.
movies that kind of ushered in what we currently see today. So almost had it, missed it by that much.
We were close enough. I feel. It all
Yes,
tied
yes.
in, right?
Oh yeah, but yes, that's about it for your
History of
history
horrors
of
for this
horror
week.
this week. Obviously, this is a great new fun segment. We like to give you guys a couple of fun facts, a little something Luke whipped up for us. Because like I said, this show is his baby. He kind of curates everything here for us, and I think this is a fun segment for sure. Because it's always great to find out what came out way back when in the time we're living in now. So
Always gotta
good
respect that
times.
history, I suppose, right? But you did kinda botch my very smooth, transition here
Oh
because
no, I'm sorry.
we were starting to talk about Blade 2, and then I was gonna go right into our next bit of news here.
Okay.
So why don't we hop into it? Let's get into that this Halloween season just got a little creepier thanks to Guillermo del Toro and his Cabinet of Curiosities. The Oscar award-winning director has teamed up with Netflix to bring us 8 spooky stories, which will start to be released on October 25th. The 8 terrifying tales will be brought to life by a team of writers and directors chosen by del Toro himself. The trailer has shown us some of the monsters in some of the stories, which will leave you with nightmares all the way to Thanksgiving. With Del Toro's track record and the list of heavy hitters involved in the project, will Cabinet of Curiosities be this Halloween's MVP? Dylan, what did you think of that trailer?
I just watched it, full disclosure, right before we started recording. And it was something that I was supposed to do beforehand. I knew that this was one of the topics we were going to be discussing. But yeah, I guess it just slipped my mind. But yeah, no, I am intrigued as all can get out for this because I didn't realize how many awesome names were going to be attached to
It's a
this. Like,
big project.
yeah, no, and for it to fly under the radar for me. So like I figured we would have heard more about this leading up into it, but I guess that's just Guillermo del Toro infamously has his hands in a lot of stuff. So, it's kind of like you hear him. I know he's got his Pinocchio movie coming out.
which I'm
All
intrigued
kinds of
by.
stuff. Yeah, no, I didn't actually see the trailer for that either. Um,
What are you
but yeah,
doing?
no, I mean, like, he's a busy dude. Like, he's producing stuff constantly. Like, we actually just discussed last week with Scott Cooper. He was a producer on Antlers. So, it's one of those things where he's got his hands in a lot of stuff. So, the fact that this, though, is him kind of bringing together some of the, you know, great minds and everything that he's developed over these last few years, as far as just like up and coming horror filmmakers and stuff, is really really interesting to me. The one that really stood out was the director of Mandy for me, because
Yes.
I've been waiting for him. I think it's Pablo Cosmatos.
Yes, I believe that's what it is.
Yes, and then Jennifer Kent as well was
That
one
was the
that
big
stood
one
out
for
to me.
me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Because
a Babadook fan, but The Nightingale um, was perfection for me. Very very terrifying in its own right.
I
Um,
agree. I am not a big Babadook fan myself. It's okay, but I don't think it's nearly as good as everybody says.
yes.
Um, and then also David Pryor was another one that I forgot to mention as we were talking off air. He made The Empty Man,
Yes.
which I loved. We'll be talking about that one at some point down the road here. So really a great mix of really good ideas here. A lot of people who are definitely close with it. It looks like he's got Gilmore Navarro, who is his go-to cinematographer for a lot of his projects. So he's even giving some of his close confidants
And he's got
a
two
little
store out
project
of
on
the
here.
8, I think he has 2 stories of his own, in here. So that's
Mhm.
very intriguing. Like, again, I think I may have mentioned it either on the last Sunday Scaries, maybe, but where we talk about masters of horror, and that term is kind of thrown around. He very much is a master of horror. Like, he's in the sense where not even necessarily directing. I mean, when he does direct, it's phenomenal, and he's got a lot of horror-centric, properties out there that he has directed, but he's very much moved into this almost curating these horror stories and kind of putting together these directors and writers, as we're seeing here. Uh, I mean, it's a perfect example where he's bringing together all these people that can bring some gravitas to all these different stories. And he feels like very much of like one of us, where we get into this kind of practical versus CGI. He's very much a practical kind of person in terms of effects, and I think that's what we're going to be seeing a lot with this kind of I guess a series. I don't know if it's a continue if it's going to be something that's going to continue, or it's just going to be 8 episodes and it's going to just live in the space and we're not going to see it again. I would hope that not necessarily annually, but maybe every 2 years or something like that, we decide to get another 8 episodes to kind of add on to this mythology that they're going to be building here, because I believe um maybe one of those stories is an HP Lovecraft story. I don't know 100%. I thought maybe I'd seen that in one of the articles, because I don't know all the names of. I haven't read all the synopses for each different story, but I'm very intrigued by them.
So it's episode 4, directed by Keith Thomas, who just did the recent Firestarter
Okay.
remake. So not the best, but
Yes.
obviously, that's a tough one to really get there. The trailer would give you the title for that, but it doesn't on IMDb here.
Doesn't say
Um,
specifically.
no, but I do want to bring up, just because I went through and looked at all the directors to kind of see what they've done. So the one that's entitled Graveyard Rats is actually Vincenzo Natal. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not great with these names. He did Splice and In the Tall Grass for Netflix. So he's a Netflix alum there for you. And Splice was one of those weird mid 2000s movies that I actually think is pretty decent.
I haven't
Uh,
seen that one.
it's a weird concept. I think that if they just would have pivoted a little bit and not gone for what everybody expected they were going to do,
Yeah.
which spoilers is just a bunch of sex scenes with the creature. I think that
Party?
we would have been yeah, right, it would have been a more interesting story. But I actually don't think it's half bad. I have it on Blu-ray. And then we have it's my my apologies, it's Panos Cosmatos.
There we go.
He's doing episode 5. The thing that catches my attention here, now this could be a total error on IMDb, but as we know, we discussed a little bit about it. I think at least once a week here we talk about streaming and the landscape that we're in. I know we discussed a little bit about Netflix needing to lean towards the horror side of things to save itself almost. Um,
Yeah.
Looks like they're releasing this on 2 episodes on October 25th, 2 episodes on the 26th, 2 episodes on the 27th, and the last 2 episodes on the 28th.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. We don't get that with Netflix very much. So is this them kind of, turning a new leaf and deciding that, maybe we need to stagger our stuff a little bit more? We saw a little bit of that with Stranger Things. Um, but even that was a little strange, for lack of a better term, with just releasing the last 2 episodes after releasing most of the season. So, I'm interested. I think that the fact that we're coming right up on Halloween for this, that's a pretty good way to do that. I think, like, given 2 episodes a day, especially if they're like 30 to 40 minute episodes, like that's pretty cool.
And for this, I don't know necessarily if they're learning to stagger episodes. I really do feel like they want to make this into an event, so they don't want people to kind of binge it all, one day and then not have anything else uh, to watch all the way up until Halloween. It's almost like a countdown. It's like the AMC's or the ABC Family, 31 Days of Halloween, where it's like I feel like they really, especially with the heavy hitters that are involved here, it really does seem like we want to make this an event, almost an tentpole event. Like that's why I'm curious to see if this is going to continue down the line, because I feel like Guillermo del Toro will be able to kind of pull in so many different creatives to kind of I have high hopes for this. I can't assume this is going to fail. Out of 8 episodes, I feel like I will like at least 6 of them.
Oh yeah, and I
Um,
think the names attached, like we've already gone through, and there's even more directors. Like this is something we'll definitely be covering
yeah,
as it releases, to kind of, at least even if we give you guys just shorts or whatever, like we're gonna get our opinions out here on this one
yeah.
because there's
So
a
I mean,
lot
like,
of great talent in this.
and like with all these things coming that are coming around the Halloween time, this is honestly one of my most anticipated. I know there are 8 episodes here. It's going to be a pretty big undertaking to catch them all as they're being released. I mean, during a work week, trying to catch the 2 episodes, but it's like one of those things where I'm so excited for this. I think this is going to be one of the big highlights of the Halloween season. It just even the trailer itself, I looking at the
Mhm.
practical effects, just the little blurbs of the stories that we're gonna get, has me very excited about this. That's why it's like this is one of my most anticipated things here.
Easily one of my most anticipated. I agree with you there, sir. But yeah, I guess if that about wraps that up there, you want to guide us
Hop
into
into our
our
next story.
next one?
It's time to play a game again. The Saw franchise officially announced its 10th installment for Halloween 2023. Kevin Greutert, who is responsible for both Saw 6 and Saw the Final Chapter, is slated to direct this new chapter of games and gore. While much hasn't been released about the plot itself, the original Saw film is a tentpole in the horror community. It ignited the craze to see characters endure so much pain and suffering because it's oh so much fun. In recent years, the franchise released both Jigsaw and Spiral from the Book of Saw, all within the universe and keeping the franchise afloat. Is this addition to the is this edition of the 10th film a way to get more gas out of the franchise? Or are we in for one last tricycle ride before we put the franchise to bed. I was kind of surprised to see they announced the Saw 10 just because it's kind of been dormant in terms of the mainstay franchise for such a long time. I feel like maybe they thought people were tired of it, and I think maybe to an extent they were, because there's only so much you could do to kind of keep that franchise original. But maybe they were just kind of, you know, laying low for a while so they can release this. Hey, we're doing the 10th film, because it seems like to kind of get that far into the franchise to not do a 10th would almost just be like, why not do it? If you've made 9 already, you might as well just go. If you're gonna close the franchise, just do it on 10.
Yeah, I think it would be a great stopping point, but obviously with a series that already pulled a Friday the 13th Part 4 and has a Saw the Final Chapter, no, this is not going to be the last one. I'm telling you right now, this is going to make a ton of money opening weekend. I did a little short on this trying to gauge people's opinions. Not many people saw it, so I didn't really get anything back, but it's one of those things where it's like, I can already tell you that there's enough fans of this franchise who are just excited to get back to basics with it. I think you're right that maybe at the time they wanted something a little different. They wanted to change it up, but Jigsaw went in a direction that didn't really work for people, and then Spiral kind of did the same thing. So, it's one of those things where it's like, we've tried twice now to change up the formula. It's clearly not catching on with people. And these movies are just so cheap that, like, why not just, go back to what people like? You know what? It doesn't matter how convoluted the timeline is, doesn't matter how convoluted the story is. People are there for the traps. They're there for the little bits of drama that they get out of it. And, I say for the Saw fans, I'm happy for them. I like the first movie. The rest of the sequels are kind of give or take. I mean, I couldn't even tell you really what happens in each one. They all kind of muddle together after a while. But, it's one of those things where it's like, I know that there's diehard fans for this. I know that there are people who will go out and, buy a ticket day one. And I'm happy for you. I think that that's great. I hope that this satisfies that itch that you've been wanting if those other two did not. And yeah, I can imagine we're probably going to get like up to 13 over the
Yeah.
next couple of years. We'll at least get 3 more. But yeah, I don't think Saw is going anywhere at this point. If we made it to 10, then like it's pretty much a guarantee that this is going on. Which, so final chapter was what, 7?
You're asking the wrong
Saw
person.
7? I think that's Saw 7. I can check for us. But yeah, if that's Saw 7 and then they're counting Jigsaw and as 8 and then the Book of Saw as 9. So are they canon? Or is it all still gonna be connected? I don't know. So that's kind of where my curiosity is piqued, because it's just kind of like, how do you circle back here? Are we gonna have Chris Rock and everybody else pop back up into this, and they're gonna play a game with everything? Is this gonna be a culmination of everything? Are we getting Carrie Elwes back again? Considering I remember in Saw 7 he was the bad guy, because him and geez, I'm sorry guys, I don't remember the main guy's name from Saw, the bad guy.
Tobin
Um,
Bell, maybe? Is that who you're talking about?
well, I know Tobin Bell, I just don't remember
Okay.
his character's name.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I don't.
it's
I honestly like you. I honestly, let's see. I know two. Saw 2. I can say definitively what happens in Saw 2, but beyond that, I think maybe I've seen maybe up to 4. I don't know because they all kind of get muddled together. But even then, I don't know what happens in 3 or 4, so I can't really say that I've actually seen them because I got off the Saw train pretty early. Um, I mean, some of the kills seem pretty fine. The traps seem sort of entertaining. I feel like marketing this as Halloween 2023. I mean, it's printing money at that point where um, y- people are going to want to go just to see traps and be in a theater on in the Halloween season and be scared. So why not do it? It's smart marketing. It's going to be um, a hit at the box office regardless. And like you said, these movies are so cheap that you're just going to get a profit back. So why not do it? I do think that maybe this was kind of, let's lay the Saw franchise low for a little bit and then bring it back so that people have been missing going to the theater during the Halloween season, not necessarily sitting at home saying, I want to see a Saw movie tonight and I want to go stream Saw 10. I feel like, it, it does feel like more of an event, especially there won't be a David Gordon Green Halloween film in the theater in 2023. So there's going to be a void there that someone's going to have to fill. So I feel like Saw is going to kind of swoop in there and try to steal some of that audience that's kind of craving a mainstay horror franchise to go see during the Halloween season. So I mean, on all accounts, it's smart to bring Saw back, because there's going to be an audience for it. You don't even really need a loyal audience for this because this captures a general audience. There's not, I mean, depending on where they go with the story, I don't even know what the story is anymore. I did see Spiral, but I can't even really tell you what exactly happened. I think that did tie into Saw, didn't it, in some fashion? I can't remember, but um, so it's like I don't even know if they're going to go with a real Saw story here, or we're just going to go traps and kind of hit the reset button and see, throw whatever at the wall and see what sticks. Because there are going to be people that are going to go see this. So I mean, it's a smart play, and I do feel like this is going to birth another 3 or 4 films right out of this. So because before they were pretty regularly releasing every Halloween, I think.
Oh yeah.
So and then they
Mhm.
stopped.
That
So
and then I think Paranormal Activity derailed that, I believe, is what happened because then they had competition because Paranormal Activity was coming out every Halloween as well. I remember
okay,
there was a point of contention there because that would make sense considering the last Saw came out in 2010. Paranormal
in
Activity.
2010.
Yes, so that would be the last mainline Saw film. Then you
Wow, I
waited
didn't realize
until
that it was
then
that
it
long ago.
and then we jumped to I think it was like 7 years. It wasn't it. It was yeah, 7 years no Saw, and then Jigsaw came out.
Wow, I didn't
Remember
realize
we
it was
saw
that
that one
long.
in theaters? We
Yeah,
that was for OG Splattercast. Rough.
that was that was a film. That
I
was a
didn't like
film.
that movie, man. I'm sorry. I know some of you guys love this stuff, but
I know
like for
there is
me,
a there's a pretty good following for Jigsaw.
it's just I they always have so much promise in my opinion,
Yeah,
but I just always catch myself being like, okay, well, I think where it loses me is that like the kills are fine. The kills are great. Like they're fun. And that's what I'm there for. But like whenever they try to do anything with the story, it's just kind of like stuck in this loop of
yeah.
just like, double crossing this person or this person double crossed us here and blah blah
It
blah. It's
gets
just like
convoluted at points, and I'm like, I can't even keep
very
track of this,
much. Very,
So
very much.
I don't know. Seeing Saw 10 pop up in the news saying, "Oh, we're back," it didn't really get me excited. I don't think I'll be checking this one out. I still I have the collection digitally, and I still haven't checked out
Same.
the last half of it. So, I mean, again, if you're a fan of the Saw franchise, more power to you. But this one, um, I don't know. It's like okay, I think this is like, let's see how much gas we can get out of the franchise. Is honestly what it does feel like.
Yeah, because Paranormal Activity came out in 2007. Paranormal Activity 2 comes out in 2010. And then 11, 12, 14, and then so on and so forth. So you can really see where Paranormal Activity derailed that Saw every Halloween kind of thing.
And
But I mean, it comes and goes. It's got waves to it. That's the horror genre for you.
and I feel like this is probably one of those tests to see is the audience hungry for this again? You know what I mean? Where it's like, we wait. You were just talking about Paranormal Activity, where they were releasing every year, and then I think they took a break. What to 2014, where it's like, let's gauge the audience here.
Actually,
Let's see. Yeah.
2015 because I forgot about the Ghost Dimension.
Oh, okay. So it's like let's kind of gauge the audience, see where the interest lies. Let's see if we can, if Saw 10 hits, which I suspect that will. I can see them easily saying, oh, we're going to do all the way up to 13, making that kind of bold statement to say there are going to be three more films on the way, not just one, but three more, so I could easily see that, January of 2024 saying, oh, yeah, we're going to have a handful more of Saw films coming out. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, and then it's interesting that we talk about this because kind of linking Paranormal Activity in here. They already tried to come back in 2021 with a release on Paramount Plus with that. Um, so last year, I don't know if you even remember this, Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin.
Oh, I remember hearing about this. Yes.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
watch it, but
apparently pretty different. And apparently they do some cool stuff, but again, I don't have Paramount Plus, so I didn't check it out. So
yeah.
yeah, Luke, you have it. You got to do some homework for the channel here. You got to check out all the previous Paranormal Activity movies and then watch that one this week so we can get a comparison here, okay? You got that?
No, I'm gonna be fully committed. I guarantee that I will do this, but don't be surprised if I'm very vague and cannot tell you any details. But I did watch them. You can take my word for it.
There you go. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So
All
we're
right.
getting more Saw
Well,
movies.
and I'm sure the wheels are gonna fall off that tricycle. But let's move on to our next bit of news. Sex and violence has always been a great descriptor of the Hellraiser franchise. With Pinhead and his Cenobites taking over Hulu in a new film, it looks like they don't plan to disappoint. The Hellraiser film officially received an R rating for strong bloody horror violence and some sexual content. With the same team that brought audiences The Night House, this reinvigoration of the Hellraiser franchise looks to be what fans have been waiting for. In addition to the new film, the TV series is still in development, which is being co written by Michael Dougherty. With all this talent being unleashed in this franchise, can we see Pinhead claiming the throne as King of Carnage in the next few years? Which, I mean, like, all this news, all the talent again attached to this seems very promising here. And I know that Hellraiser, after the first two, has been such a franchise that has struggled. I know there's a following out there that a lot of people like they're each different ones, but I mean, honestly, I've only seen the first two. I've tried to watch some of the following ones, and I just can't get through them. You can tell that there's such a dip in quality there that it's just it's really hard to get through. And so I don't know. Hellraiser has really been one of those when we talk about the Mount Rushmore of horror, where it's like you have Freddy, you have Jason, you have Michael. Leatherface usually falls into that. Where and I just remember like Hell or Pinhead always being kind of in that conversation, but I don't know. It just seems like he's been that distant fifth, for so long. And then Scream showed up and we have Ghostface, so it's like he's just been falling farther behind. So I'm really pulling for the Hellraiser franchise here. I like the concept. I like the ideas that are behind it. It just after those first two, they were just so poorly executed that I think a lot of people just threw the Hellraiser franchise in the trash and never revisited it.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate, but yeah, I have faith for this one. I think that we've got a great writing team behind this. The Night House was awesome. I really enjoyed those guys' work on that. It was just a movie that really, I think, I didn't expect to just like fall in love. I'd heard that it's great, but I was just one that I was just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna check this out. I've heard good things, and I was just like, holy shit, this is really original, really cool. Um, so yeah, I got to give it to Ben Collins and Luke Picharowski. They did an excellent job with that, but this is being directed by David Bruckner, who also
Yes.
directed The Night House, as well as another film that I think I was pretty harsh on when I first watched it, and I think I may have given you a rough review of, but I recently went back and rewatched this. Just I had the urge to check it out, and I don't know what I was smoking in 2017, but The Ritual. Is this one that you've seen? I know that I
Yes.
I talked it. How do you feel about that?
I thought it was okay. I wasn't a huge fan of some of the lore there. I think is what it was. I have to remember correctly. I think the the thing that I kind of gave it a strike against was they didn't really explain the lore. I think it's based off of some sort of mythology.
It is
But
Norse mythology.
I don't know if they really explained that well in the actual film itself. It was more so you have to go do research on it. And I think I remember giving them a strike for that.
I actually really loved it this last viewing. Now, this is years removed since my first viewing, but I thought that this was a really deep and really creepy, really scary movie. It's been one that I watched before we even started the podcast again. I rewatched it, and I've been meaning to kind of spring it up on here and make it a show for us soon, because I think that it is a lot like when we talked about Sinister, how that one I wasn't a huge fan of.
Yeah.
I want to revisit this because I think that I may have pulled the trigger a little too soon on my feelings for that one, because I think that it's actually quite exceptional. I think maybe the Night House has something to do with that. But yeah, I mean, if we're coming back full circle here on Hellraiser, I think you got a great team here. I think that with this material and this team behind it, I think that we really have a good shot at really reinvigorating the franchise, because this is one of those franchises that really needs it, because they've been stuck in direct to video hell for a long time. I mean, the last one I think was a found footage movie, was it not?
And I think they've been falling into this whole we have to make a film so we don't lose the rights to Hellraiser. So a lot of things are more based on low quality just to get it out there so that we maintain a property rather than actually trying to make a go of the franchise and make it feel like a real franchise. So I mean, at that point, I just feel like people in charge weren't even concerned about pumping out any sort of quality. It was just get a product out there that really no one's going to watch. And I think that's really hurt the Hellraiser franchise. And I mean, it's something again where there's so much potential here. So looking at the team behind the Night House and what they did there, this kind of shows that, at least my feelings are that it shows that there could be a lot of quality to this upcoming film, and seeing that R rating with, again, it checks all the boxes to a classic Hellraiser film. And I'm also very intrigued by the TV series as well, because I want to see, all this. We're such in such a unique time with streaming services, all the different media, the way we consume it, where it's like, we talked about Chucky, where we get a TV series, they rebooted Child's Play. We're getting all these franchises that are based off of one idea that are living in the same space simultaneously. It's like we've never gotten that before. So I'm very intrigued to see how Hellraiser is going to balance this, where we're going to have a film on Hulu, then we're going to also have a TV series, which I think was supposed to be on HBO. So it's like I'm curious to see what different storylines we're going to go. Is Pinhead the central character in the TV series? Or are we going to kind of go focus on different Cenobites? So I'm curious to see. Again, it's such an expansive universe. You can tell a billion different stories here and all have them live in that space. So I'm very curious to see where we're going to go with all this. There's just a plethora of talent behind all these different Hellraiser properties right now that, looking at it, I'm very excited for it. Like, I can't think of, the Halloween franchise, we know what we're getting there. Halloween Ends is a bit of a question mark, but you can kind of gauge it with the last two films that we've had. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I just feel like they've tried so many different things. The quality isn't there, at least thus far. Friday 13th, nothing yet. So we're
We
still
need
waiting.
to we need to get into the Friday the 13th stuff, man. We do.
And
I don't even
then,
care if it's bad at this point. Just I want something.
and I mean, Scream, we've been there with Scream 5. I don't think either of us were fans of where they went with that one. Um,
They could they Okay, I'm Halloweening myself again here. They could turn Scream around. There's still an opportunity. I wasn't a fan of the last one, but doesn't mean that
They've
the
killed it
next
yet.
couple could be bad.
It just, I'm not excited for it right now. Like,
Mhm.
I'll see where it goes. I'll definitely see Scream 6, but I'm not like, there's a lot of potential there. Like, they're going to knock it out of the park. Like, Hellraiser, I really do feel like there is potential here to really make Pinhead in that conversation of horror icons right now, because he's been lost in the shuffle because of the quality of where the franchise has gone, where it's like this, especially being on Hulu and with the success with Prey. We
Mhm.
had to mention it this episode. That I really feel like um, they can bring that horror audience in and really get a lot of subscribers to be like, they gave the name back to the Predator franchise, so it's like I feel like they can do that with Hellraiser as well.
I really hope so, but again, I think that just like with Prey, we had Dan Trachtenberg behind that, which gave me a lot of hope. I think we have a great team here, and I think that these guys are gonna hopefully knock it out of the park. That would be really cool. I'd be really happy for Hulu if they could do the one-two punch of Prey and Hellraiser, and then we can kind of keep moving from there. As far as the HBO series goes, there's not much out there. I wouldn't be surprised with everything going on at Warner Brothers right now that
That's
that
my
gets canned,
Yep.
especially since this is so much further along than the other one is. So it's like,
My only hope is that because they had said I think David Gordon Green was maybe going to direct a couple of for the
yes,
TV series, Michael Dougherty being attached, where these aren't just random directors and writers; these are kind of proven writers and directors. So I'm hoping that they have some sort of follow through here. I mean, I don't have high hopes, but I'm really hoping to see that TV series out there sees the light of day at some point.
I hope for your sake that we can, but at the same time, David Zaslav is slicing and dicing over there at Warner Brothers. So we shall see. We don't even know if we're going to have HBO Max this time next year.
Oh yeah, aren't they
So
merging?
they are, but we don't officially know what they're doing with that service.
Okay.
So I think it's a little stupid to cut it considering it's doing pretty well. And the amount of content that's on there, I think just start throwing do a rebrand and start throwing stuff on the service that's already there. Don't cut the subscribers, but that's
You,
another conversation for another time.
you better finish that Spawn series while you can, man.
I know, right? There's a little bit of pressure. I watched a couple episodes this week. Still fucking great. Really, really enjoying that.
Again, another TV series, where the movie existed and then the TV series showed up. So we got it back in 1997, 1998, I suppose.
I think we're gonna if they do both come out. Honestly, like I think that it would be the reverse. I think the movie is gonna be really solid. I don't know about the series, so
Yeah,
we
we'll
shall
see what
see.
happens.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's move into our last topic. Pour a glass of wine and polish the butcher knives, because it's time to discuss some elevated horror. A24 celebrated its 10-year anniversary on August 20th. The film company has given us a catalog of interesting films to chew on since its inception. Now more than ever, the term elevated horror has entered discussions between horror fans, and with Scream 5 making it a talking point, the term has become more divisive than ever. Horror has always been a genre that has birthed so many other subgenres, but has elevated horror created a rift between a lot of horror fans? I know this is becoming more and more of a hot topic, I would feel. You know, I was just thinking about it, and it's like, we don't have that contention necessarily of someone who prefers werewolf subgenre films as opposed to someone who likes vampire subgenre horror films. But there does seem to be a little bit of a contention between people who say they love elevated horror, going against, I guess you would say, the more traditional, iconic, you could even say slasher horror.
Mhm.
Again, Scream 5 was very quick to point out this kind of topic all throughout that whole film, even to the very last kind of catchphrase toward the end. So, I don't know if because of Scream 5 that this conversation has been a little more elevated than usual. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Dylan?
I think that it's definitely been something that's yeah, it's becoming more of a buzzword for sure. It's been getting thrown around though for years. I'd say probably about 2 or 3 years since A24 and Neon really started kind of taking the horror subgenre by storm. Um, it's just one of those things where it's like I really love and respect a lot of these movies. Like I pulled up a list here that I saved earlier this week just to kind of really give us some perspective for the quality that we have been
Kind of a
so
unique perspective, maybe?
yeah, I mean, like, I would say, yeah, it's a unique perspective just of what the quality that we've been given over the last like 10 years or so here. I mean, we've got everything from movies like Climax, something that I really enjoy. Did you ever see that one, Gaspar Noes?
No. You
It's
told me about it, spoke highly of it, said it was very different, and
it
I had been
is.
meaning to check it out. I was going to watch it at work one time, but then it was a subtitled, I believe, isn't it?
You can't. Yeah,
And
it's
I
a
was like, I
French film.
can't.
Yeah, It Comes at Night, which was very controversial between the pair of us, but still, I think a unique and interesting film nonetheless. Enemy by Denis Villeneuve,
Yeah.
awesome fucking movie. Under the Skin, Killing of a Sacred Deer, Green Room, Midsummer, Lighthouse, The Witch, Hereditary is kind of their top dog. I mean, like that's a fucking great list. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of heavy hitters on there for the last couple years as far as just like even it's just as far as film goes. Like I
Yeah.
mean not even just talking horror. So it's like they've really made a name for themselves by kind of taking the horror subgenre and I guess elevating it. I mean, and it's not necessarily like, you know, that these movies are they can be artful, they can be great. um I think that there's always been that in this genre. I mean, I think back to things like a movie I haven't seen but I've heard a lot of great things about. I own it. Possession.
Yes.
Think about like The Exorcist, stuff like that. It's like, these are more serious films with horror undertones. You know what I mean? Like these are art films. Like so I think elevated horror has always been kind of a thing, but the fact that, now it's almost becoming serialized a lot like what we do with like the MCU and stuff like that, where it's like now we kind of have a company or two companies that are constantly just like really advertising and putting themselves out there as like this is a unique, interesting, different experience. And I mean, they are. I mean, Climax is unlike anything I've ever seen. Killing of a Sacred Deer is completely different than Climax, and The Witch is different from all of them. So it's like they're giving. I think really what it comes down to is that they're giving people with true vision, an idea, something they're passionate about, a stage to perform, and no matter the result, they're just letting them do it. They're letting them get their vision out. I think that's really what should be being talked about when we discuss elevated horror.
Yeah.
But I think you're right with the addition of Scream 5 and just kind of how that buzzword has kind of become the new thing around the movie sphere. Um, it is just kind of getting to that point where it's almost becoming a joke, which sucks. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to change the quality of the films. I think, like, they're still going to keep producing what they're producing, and I hope they keep it up.
And I think we're in a very different position today than we were farther back in the day in terms of where horror is at. Where we talked a few weeks ago about Wes Craven, and he shared in the little clip that we played at that point that he talked about doing The Hills Have Eyes and then doing The Hills Have Eyes 2, and then at that point when you do that sequel, that's where you're at. You're a horror director, and Mick Garris asked him if he felt like he was kind of assigned to a ghetto at that point. And he said, a lot of great things come out of the ghetto. And it's like, I think horror is at a different point because of how many great things were created probably more so in the 80s. I mean, there was we had sequelitis, so there were so many different things, but even a lot of those bad sequels, or that you would term bad sequels, had an effect on a lot of people, a lot of general audiences. They were out there to the masses. It became a little more accepting to want to go to the theater and see a slasher, where maybe previously it wasn't really a typical thing. So I think at that point, horror had a chance to have an influence more so on a lot of people. And I think we're seeing that nowadays, where a guy like maybe Wes Craven in earlier in his career felt like maybe he was pigeonholed in the horror realm, where now we have guys who are already established. David Gordon Green made a conscious decision to make a Halloween trilogy. Uh, direct, quote unquote, real directors have made a decision to jump into horror, where before it was a means to an end. John Carpenter got into it because it was, you know, those are the cheapest films you can make, and someone wanted to make a film about Halloween, and then that kind of spawned his career, where that's not necessarily how it goes anymore. A lot of established directors want to get into the horror realm. I do have a clip here of from Joe Bob Briggs, that I wanted to play. um, uh, a listener had wrote in asking a question about elevated horror, and he kind of plays around a little bit before he gets down to his real answer. Dylan, you want to play that one real quick?
100%.
Okay, all right, I'll be serious.
No, you won't, but go ahead.
Elevated horror is a term used by people who hate horror to describe horror films that they like.
I think it's a little bit more than that.
Nope, that's pretty much it.
I think it's horror films that have social and cultural themes.
Darcy, the 1931 Frankenstein had social and cultural themes.
Okay, good point.
All the silent films had social and cultural themes. Phantom of the Opera, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Horror has always had social and cultural themes. So
I think it's people talking about recent films.
yes, it is. It's people who hate horror trying to justify their love of a recent horror film. So thank you for writing, Stuart. And that's it for us tonight. I'm Joe Bob Briggs, reminding you that the best sermons are lived, not preached, and the drive-in will never die.
I thought
Great
that was
clip.
I thought that was a very interesting kind of take on almost elevated horror, because nowadays I would say, especially living through a lot of crap that kind of came out in what 2007, 8, 9. We were in a very different spot even then with horror. I would say A24. I think a lot of, I guess you would say, elevated horror has existed throughout the decades of, the most recent horror years, even the 80s and 90s. But I would say A24 really kind of catapulted a lot of elevated horror into the forefront, and kind of made it, I guess you would say, uh, it kind of gave elevated horror a bigger platform, almost, where um,
A home,
you,
almost.
what'd you say?
I would say like a home, almost like
Yes.
an expectation, a safe space.
Because like all those films you rattled off at the beginning of this conversation, a lot of those are very highly regarded films. So it's like, once you see one unique perspective taken, and then another, it gives a guy like David Gordon Green, let me take a crack at horror, because as we talk about it, it does kind of intertwine. We've talked about it on the Sunday Scaries, in the Splattercast, everything, where horror can accompany almost any different genre, so it can be intertwined perfectly. So it's like, I feel like, even though those elevated horror films are elevated horror, they do still have dramatic set pieces, or whatever the filmmaker at that time whatever story they want to tell. So I think that kind of gives, A24 has really um, been able to kind of give that platform for those directors to kind of say, what story do you want to tell? It has horror elements, but it also has this, it has that, and it kind of, I don't know, makes an audience. When they see that A24 logo, I feel like you already have a connotation of what kind of film you're in for at that point. You already know if you're sitting there ready for that logo to pop up, you're already that audience that they're already looking for. So I
Yes.
think that kind of, like you're saying, it does give them that home to say, this isn't a tour film. This is a film with some sort of what people are going to feel gravitas toward. So it kind of gives more directors, I feel, that comfort to kind of jump into that kind of horror space.
I'd say that's a really good way of putting it. I think that that's fair. I mean, yeah, it does, like I said, create that safe space, create that kind of expectation. You see the logo, you kind of know, what kind of a movie you're in for. So it does give them a security blanket in a sense of saying, hey, I can really tell this and go as weird as I want. And, other than like the casual, moviegoer who's going to slip in every once in a while, the audience is going to know what to expect and they know to be in for a really weird and out there time. I mean, I think, one of the most divisive movies that I've seen a lot of people flip on recently that I still just don't think I don't even really want to watch it again is Men. I see a
Yeah.
lot more positivity starting to hit that as that's starting to hit
Oh,
Blu-ray. And it's one of those things where it's like it wasn't built for me. Not all of these horror films are. But there's a little something for everybody when you talk about a company like A24. There's stories that not aren't even horror related that they make, like in Uncut Gems, which you can probably say more of a general audience can get into, because I mean you got somebody like Adam Sandler who's giving a dramatic performance and kind of a more relatable story, but even then it's still unique how they decide to tell it and the kind of way they do. But then you also have room for somebody like Yorgos Lanthimos to make something that's basically adapting a Greek tragedy, and kind of a very weird story where his kids are getting sick and he has to make a choice. You know what I mean? Like it's awesome. I think that it's great. I think that people kind of bastardizing the term sucks, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of the nature of the beast when you're talking about the movie space. I mean, like it's when you have films like Scream 5 coming out and they start satirizing it and kind of making that their punching bag, you're going to have that kind of stuff, which is unfortunate. But I mean, at the end of the day, I guess you can also look at it as a badge of honor. Look how far it's come. Just within 10 years, it's been able to take over the space in such a way that this is now kind of the next evolution of horror.
yeah.
Although I agree with Joe Bob that I think it's been a thing in the genre forever. It's just that now it's under such an interesting and uh, kind of a different light that more people are starting to pay attention. And
Yeah.
I see it as a positive. I think that, no matter what happens with Scream, no matter what happens with any of that stuff, we're still going to keep going and we're still going to get these interesting movies. It's just that I think the term will die off, but it's not going to change. We're still going to get people who want to make these out there zany fucking movies. And as long as we have companies like A24 behind it that'll produce it without thinking twice, then great. Let's keep going.
And that's where it's like, we look at Cronenberg, where Videodrome, things like that, where he was really kind of telling these stories that I guess you would say elevated horror at that point in time. But then you could only really look at you'd look at Cronenberg. You had to pick them out in terms of like David Lynch. Where it's like we have to pick these guys out that are saying that these guys are doing some sort of elevated storytelling, where A24 became a company to be like, it's not just this director, it's this company right here. This company, if I want to tell a unique different story, I can sell it to this company. This company would want to tell my story. Where you were talking about The Ritual, where that takes a few viewings. Something like also The Night House. Those things, would they have been made? Would it have been accessible 20 years ago? Do you know what I mean? It could have been made 20 years ago, but was it accessible like it would be today? Because I feel like A24 was kind of that, I don't know, flag bearer, where they kind of came in and were like, we're going to tell this story, we're going to tell that story. And that made it more accessible for even people who wanted to tell a story that's not connected to A24 to say Netflix will pick this up and they'll tell this story. We may not get a crazy budget, but it's going to be out there for the masses to enjoy. And then that spitsball into a Night House, and then now Hellraiser. You know what I mean? So it's like we're kind of getting everyone circling back into all these different unique properties. And I think A24 was kind of one of those pioneers in that sense. I know elevated horror has existed, but A24 really amplified that sort of storytelling. And then another point, as Joe Bob was bringing up there, is like, we have a love for Friday the 13th. I love the final chapter, but it's not rated, regarded highly, rated highly. It's not any of that stuff, but in the horror community, the final chapter is a great horror film.
Yeah.
So it's like, a lot of those horror films that we look at are not rated highly, unless probably maybe they are a little elevated horror. Do you think like his concept there of, in more recent years, people who are uncomfortable saying that they like horror can say, "Oh, I like elevated horror," because that's kind of like a pass. Whereas, yeah, I mean, we've seen it. Child's Play 2 isn't highly regarded in terms of ratings, or Critters or anything like that isn't really highly regarded in terms of ratings, because it's traditional horror. So it's like, has elevated horror given people a pass to say, I don't like horror, but I like elevated horror because this is real storytelling? Or, I mean, does that exist in this space?
I think that if you it's not everybody, I think, in some formal way likes horror movies. It just
Yeah.
depends on how it's presented. I mean, like, you're gonna find people who like slashers, but they don't like Rob Zombie movies. You're gonna find people who, love, even the same thing. Like, they'll love movies like Halloween, but they don't like Wrong Turn. Just because they're all considered slashers doesn't mean that they're on the same level with each other. There are so many different avenues, ways you can look at this genre in and of itself. I mean, like, could you show a movie like Madman to somebody and then show them Bone Tomahawk? They're both horror movies, but I mean, they're completely separate from each other. It's Movies are movies, and at the end of the day, uh to sit there and say I don't like horror movies, so then you don't like Jaws, because that's, some people still consider that a horror film. Do you not like something like Signs because it's a thriller, it's a horror film in a way? It's like, it's one of those things where it's just like, if you say you don't like horror, it's almost too broad of a spectrum, because at the end of the day, it's, fear is a natural thing that everybody has.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't necessarily think that you don't like horror movies. I think that you don't like certain types of horror movies, because whether you like it or not, everybody enjoys the rush of being scared. It's just kind of how you want to be scared. Some people may not like to watch people get their guts ripped out, but they like to get on roller coasters. You know what I mean? It's like there's still that same type of vibe, that same kind of feeling. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of a pick your poison.
And that's where it's like, I think the genre is one of the probably the most diverse genre that exists in filmmaking, because there are so many. Again, this genre has birthed so many different subgenres that I can't really say that another genre has done something like that. And again, elevated horror has existed, but that term is such a new term now that it's new subgenres are being created all the time, no matter what. So it's like going into this broad spectrum. It is almost just such a big blanket statement to say, I don't like horror. And I think the 80s helped lessen that kind of stigma to say I don't like horror, and to kind of go into a theater saying, no, I want to see the next Friday the 13th, or I want to see the next Nightmare on Elm Street. But even like while I was growing up, there was still that kind of that wall to say no. Liking horror wasn't really that talked about. Like, no one really talked. We all watched Are You Afraid of the Dark, but no one really talked about watching Are You Afraid of the Dark. It wasn't until honestly recently that a lot, like only through social media, that I know that like a lot of people loved like the Halloween movies or Friday the 13th or Are You Afraid of the Dark? You know, a lot of people that I had went to school with kind of you see them liking that stuff and reminiscing about that stuff, but it was never really talked about at school. So it was like I think nowadays there's kind of that wall has lessened a little bit to say, you know, I'm more comfortable talking about that I do like horror because it is such, again, I think now more than ever, we do see these A24 films. We see Michael Myers back in the theater. You know, there's always to talk about our Friday 13th. We're getting a new Hellraiser. You know, we're getting all these different properties here. So many people have loved Prey, where it's like, you know, that wasn't really ever a talking point until right now. So, um, I think we're in this unique space where it's becoming a little more acceptable to talk about your love of horror. So it's like, you know, and elevated horror, I think, is something where people who say that they don't like horror are probably going to continue to say they love elevated horror. But that doesn't necessarily mean that people who like traditional horror don't like A24 films. I mean, like we sit here both absolutely love Friday the 13th films. We love, you know, just the slashers, the more gore the better, but we also will go see an A24 film. A Green Room, I think, is one of the best films, you know, horror films I've seen.
It's fantastic. It's so good.
The Killing of a Sacred Deer, I think, is great. You know, so it's like there are these really phenomenal films that are considered elevated horror. They're not mutually exclusive. You can like both, you know. So it's like, um, I don't know. I think this is a great space to live in, and I think the kind of elevated horror discussion is you don't have to take a side, you know. And I feel like sometimes horror fans feel like the need to take a side, but I mean, we sit here loving both.
And I can say as a film fan, not even just a horror film fan, that like thank God for companies like A24 and Neon and these people who are willing to take risks. And as a horror fan, I can say thank God for companies like Shudder who
Yes,
come out from the ground up, you know, and now they're making their own original content. We're there even because, like, you know, A24's kind of been moving up. They've been winning Oscars and, you know, moving up in the world. Like, I mean, A24 won best, they have a film that's won Best Picture, The Moonlight. So it's like they've already stepped it up a few notches over the last 10 years. But now we have places like Shudder where it's like, yeah, I can make a movie for $5 million and throw it on Shudder and, you know, people are going to watch it. People are going
yeah.
to talk about it.
And
Like,
I talked about the opening of this. Glorious is one of those
mhm,
films where
I'll
I
be
didn't look
watching
at
it.
the budget, but it feels small. It's in pretty much one setting entirely. It's a It feels very Lovecraftian, and there's also a unique story to be told in the inner lines of the actual kind of Lovecraft-esque story. So you probably want to get that unless Shutter existed nowadays, you know. So it's like we're really in a unique space where we're getting a lot of small properties, a lot of big properties, a lot of unique properties. Again, it is such a lovely time to be a horror fan.
I agree. I agree. But I guess that about wraps us up here for a unique perspective. So I
It
guess,
does, it does.
can I take it away and get into my segment there,
The floor
Mr.
is
Luke?
yours, sir.
All righty. Unfortunately, there's not much news to cover as far as Blu-ray and
Scared?
streaming goes. Streaming, obviously, Luke talked about it right off top. I was going to bring up the sequel to The Orphan is out, and you know I have never seen The Orphan,
I recommend The
so
Orphan.
that's what I have heard. And I guess it's nice to hear that this one is this an also. So you'd say this is a recommendation for you as well?
I would actually recommend this one.
Okay.
I was actually watching this one and verbalized, you know, again, I told you it was losing me kind of the first 25 minutes in, and I had said, you know, the the selling point of the original was the kind of the unveiling, and I was like, they can't really do anything here. You know, we already know the story. What else can they do? And they do something. They do
Mm,
something that's very intriguing. That I would recommend you to watch Orphan just so that we can talk about Orphan First Kill, just to see how you feel about it. So I would recommend Orphan First Kill. If you've seen the first one, definitely check out this one. If you haven't seen that first one, make sure you go see that first one because the first one's definitely worth a watch as well.
It's very interesting because I just checked out the guy who's directed its filmography, and a lot of movies I don't really like on here.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But hey, everybody can change. Everybody can hit a stride. So good for him. I'll definitely have to check it out. And then also Glorious was the other streaming thing I was going to recommend because I mean that came out on Thursday, like we said. I didn't get a chance to check it out, but I'm happy that Luke was able to report back and say these are pretty good. So if not a review, next week on Sunday Scaries, you'll at least definitely be hearing my thoughts on Glorious. And yeah, that's pretty much the big stuff for streaming this week. There wasn't much as far as, big horror streaming stuff. A lot of stuff coming out soon. I mean, we got the Midnight Club. We've got and then we have Guillermo del Toro stuff that we just talked about. So, I
Again,
mean, there
Netflix
will
is
be
really doubling down on the horror,
I
So
think maybe that article you're reading ain't too far off.
yeah,
As far as Blu-rays go, I wanted to discuss that this week, which would be technically the week of the 22nd. So if we're talking tomorrow. We are getting into uh, Dog Soldiers coming out on
yes,
4K. So that's one that's been people have been really looking forward to. I mean, that's a classic as far as horror film lovers say and like it goes. Um, yeah, I think that this is definitely uh, I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued. There's a reason I'm intrigued. Can't get into it right now, but yeah,
a
it's
lot of new
it's
extras on that one too.
yes, they
Um,
they really went hard on bringing you the goods for that one. I'm trying to get some specifics on it
I know
here
it got
real quick.
delayed for a second. I don't think they specified exactly what they had to okay in terms of the extras, but it took them a minute to get all the extras that they had added okayed on that one because
Hmm.
they said it was going to take a little bit longer to ship.
Yeah, no, I remember. Didn't we cover that getting delayed?
I think so. We may
Yeah,
have.
I'm
I don't
pretty
know. It's
sure
all a
we
blur
did.
now.
It's all getting to that point, yeah, where everything's
But
kind of
again,
rushing
we
together.
talk about lack of commentaries and things. It's so refreshing to see these companies going the extra mile to get all these things okay to get them out to the audience.
Absolutely. And I think that Dog Soldiers is one of those movies that's just like, if you are a werewolf fan and you haven't seen this movie, like get on it ASAP. It's
Yeah,
awesome. But that's really the big one. That is what I can say is the yeah, that's the biggest one. I clicked through a couple of the other Shout Factory things just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And yeah, we're gonna have a big month coming up next month with September. We have the Fog and Lost Boys and stuff coming up, so we'll definitely be talking about that when those drop. But yeah, this is kind of. I would say this and Chucky were kind of the biggest releases for August. So we had a little bit there, but not much else this week, guys. I'm sorry, I tried to pull together some stuff,
a
but
little bit of a drought.
as you know, with this segment, it has peaks and valleys. Like last week, we had a lot to talk about with the Black Phone bonus features and everything. That was nice. We can get into some of these because there are a few new pieces. It says that the 4K restoration from the original camera negative, proved by director Neil Marshall, which is pretty cool. If you don't know the story behind that, I won't get into it now, but maybe soon. Audio commentary from writer and associate professor Allison Parrish, and then obviously a commentary from Neil Marshall and producers David Allen and Brian O'Toole. Werewolves, crawlers, cannibals, and more. An interview with Neil Marshall. So yeah, you get to kind of go through his filmography with that one, which is pretty cool. And it looks like we're getting a standalone documentary in there, a history of lycanthropy I can get the word out. An author, Gavin Badley's on werewolves in cinema. And then also Werewolves Folklore Cinema, a video essay by author Michael J. Coven. So yeah, you're getting quite a bit with this.
A
There's
lot
a
of good
lot of
stuff
great
on
stuff
there.
on there. Yeah. So that's 3 audio commentaries plus a new restoration from the negative. And then a couple of video essays and documentaries. So it's a stacked release. I have mine pre-ordered already. So it is something that we'll be covering. Definitely a follow-up on the Sunday Scaries here. It's unfortunate because it won't be super soon. I think we have to wait about 2 weeks for it. Because let me double check here. Because I'm getting mine from Amazon. Just because it was easier for me. Yes, arriving September 5th. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
it's going to
sometimes
be about 2
and
weeks.
they always get pushed up sometimes, so maybe it'll be a little bit sooner. You never know with Amazon kind of those
I hope
release dates.
so. It's supposed to come out on Tuesday. So if I can get my hands on it sooner rather than later, I might go check out the old Best Buy, but I know they don't have much going on anymore, but I'll give it a look see and see what happens. But if they do and we can get a hold of it, that's great. If not, then at least by after September 5th, you'll get our full thoughts on this release. But this is exciting. I mean, Scream
Yeah.
Factory, we talk about them all the time. They are our picture up here for this segment because they're awesome. And this just looks like another bang up release from them. So
Yeah, I'm
keep
very
your eye out
impressed with
for it.
the extras. I mean, because that original Scream Factory release for Dog Soldiers already was loaded, and then to kind of come back with a bunch of new features for this one and that 4K release is just knock out of the park.
It makes the 4Ks worth it
Yes,
because a lot of times
it's
you're
not
just
just that
paying for the
upgrade.
restoration.
Yeah,
And sometimes with some of these Blu-rays, I will say, as somebody who has been collecting 4K since its inception, I've been on the 4K train for many years now. Some of them aren't worth it at all
yeah,
because it's like, well, I mean, I'm getting just a little bit of a slight upgrade here. But really, like we always preach in this segment, we always preach on this show, bonus content can really make up for that. So I wish that more companies would be like Scream Factory and put some goddamn work into it because it's all good for us. Like I will watch this shit over and over and over again. There are times that I will put in movies and I won't even watch the movie. I'll just go through and watch bonus content because
yep.
it's good stuff, man. Like
I'll
what
just listen
happened?
to commentary sometimes,
Hmm.
while I'm doing something else and just like that hear them talking about it because you've seen the film so many times. It's like I could just turn on, I know what they're going to be talking about anyway. So it's like sometimes those bonus commentaries are the great best thing on there because you can multitask with them.
100%. Well, that's it for my segment here. So I guess that's it for everything, ain't it? That's about it
Yeah,
for this week's edition of the Sunday Scaries, huh,
looks
Luke?
like we're wrapping up here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you guys enjoyed the episode, you guys think we're doing well here, and if you think we deserve it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you want to talk to us about any of the topics we covered today, you want to cover Hellraiser, you want to talk about the history of horror stuff, you want to talk about that kill of the week. Feel free to leave us a comment or hit us up at SplattercastPod on Twitter. We always like to keep the conversation going even after these episodes post. And yeah, I mean, if you guys are looking for our podcast, you can find it here on YouTube, obviously. But you can also find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and anywhere your podcasts are streamed. But you can only find the Sunday Scaries here on YouTube. This is a YouTube exclusive. So if you are just stumbling across us and you like the content and you want to check out more, you'll have to find us here, at least for now. But yeah, Luke, you want to leave the people with anything else?
Very, very exciting week as always in horror. Um, can't wait to see what Hellraiser has in store for us. Again, not too enthused about Jigsaw, but who is at this point? No, there's some diehards out there, I'm sure.
I'm sure we'll
Um,
review it.
oh yeah, I'm sure we'll be in the theater um, there to check out Saw 10. Can't wait. Can't.
Hey, maybe it'll be like Beast. You go in with low expectations and it blows you away.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see. I don't have high hopes. Maybe Idris Elba shows up.
Oh, that'd be great. Idris
They're gonna
Elba
put a line in a
punches
trap.
Jigsaw.
There we
you
go. And that's the definitive end to the Saw franchise. That's how it ends.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he just fights
Perfection.
him.
Can't get any
Perfect.
better. Yeah, so another exciting week in horror. And remember, always lock those sliding glass doors because you never know when Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to come through there and try to punch you in your sleep. So you gotta stay on your game, kids. But
100%.
I'll say that wraps us up here. And until next week, I'm Luke Janesco.
And I'm Dylan Newell.
And friends, stay scared.